Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Samira and this is the last wrap-up of 2023. Alright, so I haven't done a wrap-up in a couple of months for reasons, reading slump. I have 14 books on the list. Most of these I've read in December, but some of them were read back in November and October too. But I'm gonna do my best and try to squeeze them into one video. I'm gonna start the video with a 5-star read. Wundersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. Wundersmith is the second book in the Nevermore series. Published in 2018, it has 467 pages and a rating of 4.49 on Goodreads. This is a spectacular middle grade fantasy. I have previously talked about the Nevermore series, but since I read the second book, I realized this is one of those middle grades that's gonna stay with me all my life. This is really good. Let me tell you briefly about the story of Morrigan Crow. Morrigan is an 11-year-old girl in the first book who's supposedly cursed because she's born on a specific day on Eventide and she's supposed to die at her 11th birthday. She's considered a cursed girl and everyone around her, her family or neighbors, the town people, treat her as an ominous person. Like everything bad happens around her because of her, everyone blames her, so she's kind of cooped up into the house and she's not allowed to do anything special. To wrap it up, everyone is trying to ignore her existence and turn a blind eye. I don't want to give away too much, but the story essentially begins when a guy shows up, saves Morrigan, and takes her to this other magical world. Once we're in Nevermore, all the fun, the magic, and the colorful surprises are gonna show up. This was a blast, guys. If you're into middle grade fantasy, you should definitely read it because it was really good. I have zero complaints. The first book, I was saying the beginning, it took a little while to start, but in the second book, we didn't even have to wait. We were right in the middle of the story, right in the middle of everything, and it started right away. I'll probably do an in-depth review for Nevermore series once I read the third book because that's in my immediate TBR. But let me tell you, these books have interesting world building. I mean, the world is magical, it's unexpected, so colorful, so fun. We have amazing characters. We have even an amazing villain. I mean, we don't know much about him yet, but he's very interesting. We have so many fun characters. We have animals or wunimos in this world who talk and have personalities of their own. We have different species. We have everything that's good in fantasy. It's in Nevermore. And Morrigan Crow is the coolest main character for middle grade fantasy. I mean it, guys. If you're into middle grade fantasy, you should definitely check Nevermore out. It's really good. Next on the list is a 4-star read, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries, written by Heather Fawcett. This was published in January 2023. It's 325 pages and has a rating of 4.08 on Goodreads. This is fairy fantasy, as you probably expected. I enjoyed reading Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries so much. This book was what I wanted from folklore fairy fantasy. It was perfect. Let me tell you very briefly what the story is about. The story is about this professor who journeys to the far north to this very cold and remote place to study fairy folklore and finish writing her encyclopedia, the first ever written encyclopedia of fairies. But once she gets there, she discovers dark fae magic, a lot of mystery, friendship, and love. I do have a spoiler-free review for Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies because I loved it so much. And if you're interested in knowing more about the book, I'll put the link up there, you can check it out. But very briefly, I'm just gonna say this is a perfect read for winter season. I mean, because the setting, it's snowy, it's remote. I mean, Emily and her co-worker, which you're gonna know a lot more about, Wendell Bumblebee, who kind of joins Emily to help her because he's worried about her, and you'll see. They're staying at this cozy cottage in the middle of nowhere in this winterland, and I think it's everything you want to read about in winter. You're gonna love it. It's perfect for the season, so if you're interested in fairy fantasy, you know, a bit darker, classic fairy fantasy, folklore, you might want to check it out. The characters are interesting. We have the grumpy sunshine vibes here. Emily is obviously the grumpy one. This book has nice characterization and a very cute romance. I absolutely adored Emily and Wendell together, and I can't wait to get more of them. But let me tell you this book is not spicy, or at least not in the first book, but there's a lot of room for expansion and growth in the second book, and we're waiting for that patiently. Oh, and by the way, the second book comes out very soon on the 16th of January, I think. So it's the perfect time to read the book. Solid 4 stars. Next on the list is Bonesmith, written by Nicki Preto. This is the first book in the House of the Dead duology. It was published in 2023 in July, I think, yeah. July. It's 464 pages and has a rating of 4.26. Now, this is one of those less talked about books that I expected to be on the nominees list for Goodreads Awards, but it wasn't, and I was surprised because this book is actually quite good. I gave it 4 stars, and honestly, I had a blast reading this book. This should have been up there. The story of Bonesmith is described as Gideon the Ninth meeting Game of Thrones White Walkers. Let me tell you, this is a dark young adult fantasy, and I think this was everything I want YA dark fantasy to be. The story revolves around Ren, our main character, who's this disgraced ghost-fighting warrior. Ren is from the noble house of Bone, and she has to go through these trials to become a ghost-fighting warrior, to officially become one, but she's sabotaged. And because of that, she fails her qualifying trials, and as punishment, she's banished to the border wall. Once at the wall, the real story kind of begins. Ren is determined to reclaim the respect of her family and reclaim her position, so she's looking everywhere for opportunities to prove herself. So when a House of Gold prince gets kidnapped and is taken beyond the wall, Ren sees this as the perfect opportunity to go out there, save the prince, and, gain back everything she's lost. To do that, she's forced into this shaky, uneasy alliance with one of the kidnappers, a fierce ironsmith called Julian from the exiled House of Iron. The description of the story is intriguing enough, but let me tell you very briefly, because I also have an in-depth review for this one, so you can go check it out. But I'm gonna tell you very briefly why this book was so good. This book has perfect world building. I mean, I didn't expect a YA book to get so much in depth of the magic system, of the whole logic of the world. It's very interesting. It's very unique. I love the way the magic system and the whole lore works out for this book. It's perfect. And the characters are convincingly YA. All 3 of them are very interesting characters. Ren, I was skeptical because I expected, the female badass, the stereotype, but Ren is a lot more than that. She's justified. She has flaws. She's a very flawed character that you kind of root for and want her to get through these hard times. And Julian is the perfect balance we want to see beside Ren. He's the brooding, loyal, quiet type of guy. And the chemistry and the banter between these two is amazing because their houses are, enemies, sort of. So this is an enemies to lovers kind of story, if you're interested in that. Oh, and also this is the kind of fantasy where the characters are on a journey or a quest, so they're traveling from this place to that place, and it's that kind of story. So yes, everything about it was perfect. The only reason I gave it 4 stars was because there's a little bit of info dumping at the beginning, very slight amount, but the information you're getting is very good because it works towards the world building of the story. I didn't mind it, but some of you might get annoyed. There's a bit of that, so that's why I gave this book a 4 star, but it was a really good read, and I think it deserves more hype, more attention. The second book is also coming out in 2024, so you might want to check it out. My next 4-star read was The Dragon Reborn. I started reading this book, I think, in October, so it took me a long time to get through it. It's not even that long. I mean, it's 600 something pages. Dragon Reborn is book 3 in the Wheel of Time series. It was published in 1991, is 624 pages and has a rating of 4.27. I actually liked the story of the Dragon Reborn. Problem was that I fell into a reading slump right in the middle of reading it. It wasn't the Dragon Reborn that got me into a reading slump, it was another book, but yeah, it suffered because of it. Technically, I have no idea what to tell you about the 3rd book in a series because there's nothing I can tell you about it. But if you want to know in general, the Wheel of Time series is about this guy who has a very big destiny and is chosen to save the world or destroy it in the process. It's a very well-known fantasy series written by Robert Jordan and finished by Brandon Sanderson, so many of you probably know about it already, but it's a big commitment. I'm going through it very slowly. I don't know how many books I'll be reading in 2024, but I'll try to, put a dent in it. I'm currently reading the fourth book, The Shadow Rising, and I'm really enjoying that one. So far, I read about 100 pages of it. It's really good. The Dragon Reborn was also a very nice read. I mean, the story is getting a lot more interesting. We're getting a lot more of the characters we care about. I especially love Matt and Perrin's POVs a lot. We don't get to see a lot of Rand in the Dragon Reborn, and the girls' POV, although I like the girls, but the way Robert Jordan writes female characters is a little bit questionable, so it kind of annoys me a little bit at the same time, but I also want to know what happens to their side of the story. And my least favorite POVs is when we're talking about the Children of the Light, and I don't like them, and I don't want to know them. So whenever I get to those POVs, it's very little. I mean, maybe once, twice, or 3 times in the whole book. But whenever I get to those chapters, I just try to finish it and skim through it, because, oh god, I don't like them. But the story is getting really good. I realize we have this flow with the Wheel of Time books, like everything's slow, very slow in the middle, but it gets really good and interesting towards the end with a big ending. And once you finish the book, you kind of, in the feeling of, oh, that's amazing. But I have to consider the first slow part, so it's a 4 stars. I can't give more than that because I have to consider the whole book. But the story is going places. I'm much more interested now that I'm in the 4th book. I'm kind of getting the hang of it. While we're still talking about the 4 stars, I read volume 15 and 16 of One Piece in December. It's not much, but I'm trying to take it easy and go slow because I have to. Otherwise, I get sucked into the story and I finish the whole thing. Yeah, I don't want that to happen. I'll probably be reading more of it, but because I was in a reading slump, I wanted to kind of read more novels for the end of the year, so I put One Piece aside. That's the whole reason. I'm still enjoying it as much. It's a blast, and if you're not reading it yet, I really think you should, because once you start reading, once you finish the first volume, you're gonna realize what the hype is about, and yeah, you don't want to miss on that. Moving on to the 3 stars territory, I have Assistant to the Villain. This was written by Nicole Maehrer. It was published in August 2023, has 352 pages and a rating of 3.98 on Goodreads. Now, this is one of those TikTok sensations. I didn't go in expecting too much, but I still enjoyed the book. It's described as Once Upon a Time meets The Office in this laugh out loud viral TikTok series turned novel. This is about a sunshine assistant to an evil villain and their unexpected romance. Well, the synopsis was fun. It reminded me of those, romance webtoons or romance mangas where the fantasy plot is not that strong, but the romance is cute enough. That was my expectations going in, and it was pretty much what I got. And I'm not disappointed. 3 stars for this book is because we don't have a fantasy plot in this book. We don't have much word building. I mean, to me, it almost sounded like we don't have any word building at all. But the characters are nice. I mean, the romance is cute. We have the grumpy sunshine vibes, which I like. The villain was fun to get to know. Overall, it was quick and fun to read. It was like one of those romance webtoons or mangas that I binge read in a day and then move on. I don't know if I would be reading the second book. I might. I don't know yet. But it's up to you to decide. If you like this kind of thing, it's very fast. You can get through it in a day. But the whole experience was nice. I did not enjoy the audiobook. It irritated me. Besides that, the book was a solid 3 stars. I enjoyed reading it. Next on the list is the book that got me into a reading slump. I essentially wanted to give this book 3 stars, but it came down to 2.5 stars. Unfortunately, I'm really disappointed because this book looks pretty. I really wanted to love this book. I really wanted to be my type of fantasy, but it wasn't. This was not for me. I mean, this is an older book. I think it was published in 2011. Yes, 2011. It's 579 pages and has a rating of 4.02 on Goodreads. This book has its own fandom. I get that. It's not a bad book, but it was not my cup of tea at all. This book is about the romance between the witch and a vampire, but let me tell you what the description says. Deep in the heart of Oxford's Bodleian Library, scholar Diana Bishop requests a manuscript called Ashmole 782 in the course of her research. Coming from an old and distinguished lineage of witches, Diana senses that the ancient book might be bound up with magic, but she herself wants nothing to do with sorcery, and after making a few notes on its curious images, she banishes it quickly back to the stacks. But what she doesn't know is that the old alchemical text has been lost for centuries, and its sudden appearance has set a fantastical underworld stirring. Soon, a distracting horde of demons, witches, and vampires descend upon the Bodleian reading rooms. One of these creatures is Matthew Claremont, an enigmatic and eminent geneticist, practitioner of yoga and wine enthusiast, and also a vampire with a keen interest in Ashmole 782. Now, this is what the story is about. The story starts really good. I mean, the first part when we're getting to know Diana in the setting of the Oxford University, it's really interesting. She's doing her research and we have these ancient manuscripts. But once Matthew Claremont walks into the story, this stops being a fantasy and turns into being all about this romance with this vampire, which I don't even like. To be honest, I don't think Deborah Harkness has any writing problems because her writing is really good. I didn't like this book because of the romance and because I didn't agree with what it was suggesting. Some of the elements in the book were actually quite good. She knows what she's writing about, but there are parts of what she's writing about that I actually physically reject. I couldn't. I tried so hard to ignore the presence of patriarchal hierarchy in this book, but I just couldn't. I kept reminding myself that it was written in 2011, and maybe back then it wouldn't piss me off so much, but no. The romance is very toxic. I mean, the guy breaks into her apartment, watches her sleep very early on in the story. I mean, the day he met her, I think, if I remember correctly, yeah. He goes through her stuffs, he keeps things from her, he lies, kind of keeps her in the dark all the time, and I hate that trope. I hate when a male character keeps, their partner in the dark because of her own good. I just hate that. But this book had a lot of that vibe going on because Matthew knows best, because Matthew is an ancient vampire and Diana doesn't know anything about anything. But she's supposed to be smart. She's supposed to be knowing a lot of things, as the early part suggests. I mean, the early part, Diana was good, but once she starts falling for Matthew, which is very instant, she kind of loses herself, and that's why I didn't like this book, among other reasons. But still, I get it that some people, maybe another generation, don't get bothered by a toxic romance that much. So if it doesn't bother you, the rest of the story is not that bad. I mean, I wanted to know more about the witches. There's this family house that belongs to Bishop Witches that I was really interested in. I thought it was a really good element in the story, even though we had very brief encounters with it, but it was very interesting. There are demons and the whole species sound very promising. I mean, I want to know a lot more about the other parts of the story if the romance, takes a backseat. If I don't have to be face to face with it all the time. I don't know. I might still continue with the series, not now. Maybe at a later time when I'm in the mood, I might continue with the series because I really wanted to love these books. There are some good things about it, and we have time travel in the second book, and I kind of wanted to see where that goes. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. I might give it a try. Next on the list is a novella by Ali Hazelwood, Below Zero. This cover tricked me. I thought this would be my favorite out of all her 3 novellas, but no, I actually liked the one Under One Roof better than this one. It wasn't bad, but there's not much time in novellas, romance novellas, for you to get to know the characters, to get in touch with the vibes. For me, this didn't work because of that. Everything was rushed and they don't spend that much time together for me to get used to the idea of the romance. Maybe that was the problem. I don't know. It wasn't bad at all. I just didn't connect with this book that much, so I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I still liked Ian, our guy, because he's a sweet guy and I have a soft spot for those. But the whole story, it didn't affect me that much. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was just, I will still read the other one, Stuck With You, when I'm in the mood. I don't know. I love Ali Hazelwood. This book didn't work for me. I still didn't hate it. It was just... Last on my list, I'm going to tell you what I did to get out of that reading slump. I'm not going to be talking about these books because I don't know what to say. I read a couple of Reverse Harems. Okay, so I stumbled upon them and I was like, let's try to see what happens. I first read Allison's Adventures in Underland. I heard about this book from a friend, and this is a twist, the darker, more adult version of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but, you know, with a lot more blood and adult stuff. So I don't know what to tell you about the book. It's Alice's story, but a twisted version, a very twisted version. It was fun. I read all 3 books in the last 3 months, and I had a lot of fun. In general, I give them all the 3 stars, but I enjoyed the last one and I gave it a 4 stars just because there are characters. I mean, we're all familiar with Alice's characters, the whole Wonderland theme. We're familiar with that, and it was very funny and hilarious to encounter them in this book. It was absurd and weird in the way that Wonderland should be weird, but with a very, you know, funny adult twist to it. I enjoyed them. They helped me get out of this reading slump, so there you have it. So if you're into reading Reverse Harems once in a while, this one was fun. I also started another series, I think Heart Hassles or something like that. I have to check, I'll put it on the screen if I'm wrong. The first book was called Signs of Cupidity and the second was Bonds of Cupidity. This was fun too. I also gave these ones 3 stars. I enjoyed them a bit less than the Allison's one because that's Wonderland. I actually like Alice's Adventures in Wonderland a lot, so that's different. But this one was also good. I gave them 3 stars. I read the first 2 books and I'm currently reading the 3rd one. This is about a Cupid, which was a very unique twist to me because I haven't read stories about Cupids at all. This is about a Cupid going about her duties, but she's bored of her life because she doesn't get to fall in love herself. So things happen, she gets in trouble and she gets sent to the Fae realm, and we all know what happens in the Fae realm. I like this book. It's silly, it's funny, it's fun, and it's very quick. So if you were in a reading slump and needed help, these might, you know, give you the push. So that's it, guys. That's all I have for this last wrap up of 2023. Thankfully, I'm out of slump and I am actually enjoying myself in 2024 a lot so far. I mean, my reading experiences has been good so far. Tell me in the comments if you read any of these books or have more recommendations for me. I'd appreciate them. As always, thank you for watching today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!